Okay, let's see. We've got perhaps the tiniest, itty-bittiest amount of pushback.
So yesterday, President Trump, in this particular press conference, went extraordinarily hard on Ukraine, much less hard on Russia. Now, you can make the case that pragmatically what he is attempting to do is sort of wheedle Vladimir Putin into coming to the table.
What has he got? How much credit? What have we gotten so far with all of this negotiating power? What have we negotiated? What have we gotten? And people keep saying this. He's using his power. For what have we gotten? Where are these negotiations? Where are they at? Hello?
Basically, what he's saying to Vladimir Putin is, listen, I'm not taking an antagonistic position toward you. I share some of your concerns. Let's just get to the end of this thing. That is a positive read. The negative read is that President Trump is getting some of this stuff wrong. And that includes some of the demands that he is now making on Ukraine, which are harsher than the demands that he is currently making on Russia. Now, again, from a pragmatic point of view, perhaps the idea here is that it's harder to bring Russia to the table than it is to bring Ukraine to the table after all.
No shit, Sherlock, but this is why Trump is supposed to be the master negotiator. It's so crazy. When you're talking about Trump during election season, we're in our imaginations, but once Trump has been elected, we're in reality. Why is it like it? Why are you allowed to do that? Why is it like that? It shouldn't be allowed, right? Trump, in election, Trump is like, I can make any deal possible happen. And then Trump, after his election, is like, fuck, man, this shit is actually kind of fucking hard. Like, eggs are expensive. I can't do shit about that. You're blaming me for inflation? What the fuck am I? I'm the fucking president. Negotiating with Russia? Come on, dude. What am I supposed to do? Damn, you know?
Oh, the United States has the ability to cudgel Ukraine. The United States is giving billions and hundreds of billions of dollars in aid. The United States has power over enormous swaths of the European continent. And it's hard to get Russia to come to the table, and so you have to make more consent. Maybe that's the pragmatic concern here. However, negotiating from a position of weakness with regard to Putin is likely to result in a worse deal in the end, unless you think that basically the terms of the deal are already set, and we're all just dancing to the tune until the clock runs out, essentially, at which point everybody knows what happens. There are security guarantees to Ukraine, including money flying to Ukraine, European peacekeepers in the region, Russia keeping Donbass and Crimea. And so here's President Trump saying some stuff about Ukraine. Again, I have some moral objections to the stuff that he is saying about Ukraine here, because I don't think that it is true. So, for example, at one point during this press conference, he made the signally false statement that Ukraine started the war. This is not true. Ukraine absolutely did not start the war. You can argue with Ukrainian policy toward both Europe and Russia over the period 2013 to 2022.
You mean when Russia was occupying part of their territory?
But Russia invaded a sovereign country and tried to take Kyiv and has killed tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. Here's President Trump suggesting sort of the opposite, that somehow Ukraine is the problem here.
Today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal. I could have made a deal for Ukraine that would have given them almost all of the land, everything, almost all of the land, and no people would have been killed, and no city would have been demolished, and not one dome would have been knocked down. But they chose not to do it that way. And President Biden, in all fairness, he doesn't have a clue.
So President Trump there saying Ukraine never should have started it. Ukraine did not, in fact, start it. You can blame them for not coming to the table sooner. You can say the deal should have been taken sooner. I've said that myself. But Ukraine absolutely did not start the war, and Russia should have stopped this war at any point. President Trump then continued by suggesting that he wants elections in Ukraine. This has been a demand of the Russians, mainly because the Russians wish to intervene in that election. It turns out it's very difficult to hold an election in wartime conditions where literally hundreds of thousands of fighting-age men are still on the front lines in Ukraine. That is a situation rife for election manipulation by the Russians, who, of course, are bordering on Ukraine, and have many agents inside Ukraine as well. It is also noteworthy here that if you're going to call for new elections, perhaps Russia at some point should hold, an actual decent election in which Vladimir Putin does not win 98% of the vote while throwing his opponents off third-story buildings. Here's President Trump.
We're hearing that Russia wants to force Ukraine to hold new elections in order to sign any kind of a peace deal. Is that something that the U.S. would ever support?
Well, we have a situation where we haven't had elections in Ukraine, where we have
the Russian talking point.
Martial law, essentially martial law in Ukraine.
The Russian talking point.
Where the leader in Ukraine, I mean, I hate to say it, but he's down at 4% approval rating.
4%? Is that even possible? Like, even if he was the most unpopular of all time, like, I don't even know if, I doubt even Yanukovych was at 4%, but okay, another Russia talking point.
And where a country has been...
Somebody said he's at 57%.
...blown to smithereens. When they want a seat at the table, you could say the people have to, wouldn't the people of Ukraine have to say, like, it's been a long time since we've had an election. That's not a Russia thing. That's something coming from me and coming from many other countries also.
Wait.
It's been a long time since we've had, when they want a seat at the table, you could say the people have to, wouldn't the people of Ukraine have to say, like, it's been a long time since we've had an election. That's not a Russia thing. That's something coming from me and coming from many other countries also.
Okay, it is not coming from many other countries. I mean, the reality is, by the way, that Vladimir Zelensky's approval rating, and again, I think Zelensky has botched many things here, including his relationship with President Trump, but his approval rating is at 52%. It is not, in fact, at 4%. The election was due in May of 2024. They are currently under martial law. Again, it is very difficult to hold an election in the middle of a gigantic existential war with your much larger neighbor. And if he's talking about how the people should really sound off on whether or not they like the war, You kind of have to have that on both sides. There needs to be an election in Russia as well. But Trump, I think that some of this is just personal pique at Zelensky. I think that President Trump does not like Zelensky's approach to him. He doesn't like Zelensky's approach to Joe Biden. And so he's sounding off about that. And again, I don't disagree with him on how Zelensky has approached both Biden and President Trump. But when he is ripping on Zelensky in the middle of the negotiation, that obviously is going to strengthen whatever hand Vladimir Putin thinks he has to play here. Here's Trump saying that Zelensky is not getting the job done.
How would you counter the perception, because Russia's pushing for this, obviously, they don't really hold true elections, that would be a capitulation of some sort? How would you guard against potentially Russia installing a puppet government? And then finally, how would that new election have an impact on getting Zelensky to sign the rare earth minerals deal?
Look, you have leadership, and I like him personally. He's fine.
But Russia, it's okay. It's retarded. Russian officials were caught off guard by Trump's pivot toward Moscow. Wall Street Journal. After 3 years of American efforts to isolate Russia, U.S. policy took a significant shift toward Moscow in recent days. Russian officials have cheered the change, but even they appear to be caught off guard by the speed of developments. On Tuesday, top-level U.S. and Russian officials met in Saudi Arabia to discuss ways to settle the war in Ukraine and reset Washington's relations with Moscow, just days after President Trump and President Vladimir Putin spoke by phone. Then, a war of words escalated between Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, with the U.S. president calling him a dictator on Wednesday. I can't believe that they're holding peace talks in Saudi Arabia without Ukraine. Okay.
I spoke to you yesterday about normalcy bias, which is a fascinating psychological phenomenon from which I think we all suffer. At times, not all the time, of course. I was trying to think what the opposite of normalcy bias is, and it's probably hyperbole. So normalcy bias describes a desire to disbelieve or minimize threat warnings. So you are presented with something that makes you go, oh my God, that's that. And then you automatically, there's some form of psychological self-preservation kicks in and you start, no, it can't be that bad. It can't do that. I don't mean false equivalence. I don't mean BBC-style two-siding facts. Is Andrea Leadsom to claim that, the moon is made of cheese type of balance. I mean, trying to talk yourself out of thinking, fearing, believing that what you're looking at is apocalyptic. What you're looking at is deadly serious. And of course, I think the opposite of that is hyperbole. Because hyperbole involves saying that something is apocalyptic and something is deadly serious when it isn't. And we have to walk this tightrope together at the moment. I thought perhaps we were putting these days behind us when Keir Starmer got elected. I don't know how naive that was in retrospect, thinking that we're returning to days of relative stability and normality as opposed to normalcy. You're not going to have a barefaced liar in the House of Commons. I mean, abandoned by his entire party, found to have lied repeatedly and then running off with his tail between his legs to the Daily Mail. You just presume there'll be stability. And good God, there is. Thank goodness we have somebody who, though flawed and fallible, is clearly not a pathological liar, for example, or an incurable narcissist in number 10 Downing Street, or Liz Truss. I haven't got the adjective, sorry, sue me. But you cannot for a minute underestimate the import of the moment that we find ourselves in. It's incredible, this. This is not a moment for worrying about hyperbole. This is a moment for worrying about normalcy bias. This is a moment where you have to try to silence the voice in your head that is saying, this is really bloody serious. Now, Donald Trump is lying on a scale that is almost impossible to compute. And he's not just lying. He is the online Kremlin propaganda made flesh. He is repeating the lines that your Auntie Doris's Facebook has been serving up for the last 10 years about...
Maybe I'm missing something, but can't Ukraine and Europe just ignore the U.S.-Russia peace talks, however unlikely it is? Can't Europe just fund the war itself? I mean, they can ignore it, but it's causing these rifts and schisms. And if the U.S. was to pull out completely from funding Ukraine, I don't know if Europe would continue to support them. But I mean, I guess that's part of what the talks are that European leaders are supposed to be having. Have they already had them, or are they scheduling to have them? Or?
About Ukraine being responsible for its own invasion. Remember when Farage spoke about, you don't poke the Russian bear? That pro-Kremlin propaganda has seeped into so many corners now of the online world that it has, well, again with Trump, you don't know whether he is caught up in it or simply harnessing it for his own ends. But he is absolutely, as Sir Ben Wallace said this morning to Nick Ferrari, he is absolutely parroting Kremlin propaganda lines or propaganda lies, whatever you prefer. And that is incredible. That is not a moment for worrying about hyperbole. That the President of the United States of America is peddling Kremlin pro-Putin propaganda. It's extraordinary. Now, it's one of those mornings where I always feel like the kid in The Sixth Sense seeing dead people. I don't see links that don't exist, but I have a few stories that are not immediately, obviously relevant to what we need to talk about this morning. The first involves Elon Musk. Quite briefly, because I think this is important in terms of what people do online, what people see and what people end up believing. Elon Musk reposted an image of what the original poster said was a hospital in Birmingham in the United Kingdom being overrun by migrants storming the premises with axes and knives. The account, which is the kind of thing that Twitter is now almost entirely dedicated to, claimed that the picture had been taken in Birmingham and that the story was buried on mainstream media. That poor woman that I eavesdropped on in Hounslow last week was adamant that the mainstream media never gives you the full story. The woman who believes that Michelle Obama is a man and that Vladimir Zelensky spends all the military aid he receives on yachts.
And that Macron's wife is a man too. That's another one. Those trans people are everywhere, apparently.
I can laugh at her, but the President of the United States of America is now signed up to exactly the same feed. So Elon Musk shares this picture, shares this claim. Mainstream media are ignoring it. Would you like to know where the footage came from? That the footage that was being described as migrants wielding axes and knives storming a hospital in Birmingham that had been buried on mainstream media.
Arma 3.
It is widely believed, I mean, it's clearly fake. It appears to be from the Batman film The Dark Knight Rises.
Oh.
So it wasn't Birmingham, it was Gotham City. It wasn't real, it was cinematic. And that's Elon Musk, arguably the second most powerful man in the world at the moment. Certainly the richest. Using his own propaganda machine to tell you and anybody else on that site that Birmingham hospitals are being overrun by migrants wielding knives and axes. How many people believe it? With that woman I overheard in Hounslow last week when I was on jury service, does she believe it? I suspect she probably does.
Wait, does anybody have a link to this
And then you
tweet?
come to the Romanian election, which is something we should probably all be reading up on rather more because it's almost the distillation of a lot of the problems that we face. So the last Romanian election was annulled because when the results started coming in, two people, a chap called Salin Georgescu and a woman called Elena Lasconi were performing incredibly well, despite the fact that certainly in the first case, nobody had ever heard of them prior to the election. And this is where things get really tricky, because it was the Constitutional Court that annulled the first round results, citing Article 50, Paragraph 3 of Romania's electoral law, which allows for annulment if significant fraud or interference likely impacts the election's outcome. And what they discovered was a slate of coordinated misinformation campaigns on social media. But of course, this was done secretly, Russian-sponsored. What Elon Musk is doing now is, shrugging off any semblance of secrecy. Sharing it, and they do what Farage did after he used Andrew Tate as his news source prior to last summer's riots. They say, oh, just asking questions, what's going on here? Not doing the most cursory of checks to see whether this stuff is true, but spread.
Wait, what? Okay. The original response was deleted. What happened here? Nothing happened. All the pictures and videos referred to in the post were confirmed as fake. No disorder took place at any hospital in Birmingham following the stomach of a 16-year-old boy. Images being shared on social media which claim to show people carrying weapons at a hospital are fake. Several X users were quick to flag that the image was actually a screenshot from The Dark Knight Rises, the 2012 Christopher Nolan Batman film. Based. Birmingham.
Spreading misinformation on a hideous level, social media, cyber attacks, influencing public opinion in Georgescu's favour. So I've seen him described as a TikTok puppet, with the Kremlin pulling all of the strings, but pulling them so effectively on TikTok, with people primed to believe things that aren't true, that they end up voting for him. The investigation, which of course is why a certain type of pundit and politician likes nothing more than attacking judges, because judges are in some ways our last line of defence against dictators and fascists, against oppression. That is why courts decide to annul an election because a foreign state has clearly targeted them. They wanted a pro-Kremlin candidate or even a pro-Kremlin proxy in charge or in the Romanian presidency. It's not clear-cut for me, this. That's probably the single greatest flaw with democracy, is that people who believe something that isn't true can win. Who just thought of Brexit? So you say, so Democrat, it's the will of the people, but it's the will of people who've been fed a diet of undiluted nonsense and lies. But democracy is the best system we've got. How we cope with democracy's vulnerability to the fact that you can have a win for liars, you can have a majority of people who believe things that aren't true, I do not know, because I don't think it's ethically or even politically clean-cut that the Constitutional Court in Romania should have annulled this election, that this, quote, will of the people. So we pull that together. We have the events in Ukraine unfolding. We have the events in Romania. We have the events online. We have all of these things unfolding in real time in front of us. And then you have Donald Trump overnight making it absolutely clear what his relationship with observable facts is, what his relationship with the truth is. And this is why I began this morning by talking about normalcy bias and hyperbole. Normalcy bias is a cognitive bias which leads us to believe things that aren't true because we're frightened of them being true, to disbelieve or minimize threat warnings. Hyperbole is a device we deploy best understood as exaggeration. So here is somebody saying something, oh my God, that's like Hitler. Sounds like hyperbole until it is like Hitler. And when it is like Hitler, normalcy bias kicks in and we start trying to talk ourselves out of that grim conclusion. So just listen to it for yourself and possibly register what kicks in first. Fear of hyperbole or fear of normalcy bias?
I want to see peace. Look, you know why I want? Because I don't want all these people killed anymore. I'm looking at people that are being killed. And they're Russian and Ukrainian people, but they're people. Doesn't matter where they're from on the whole planet. And I think I have the power to end this war. And I think it's going very well. But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal. I could have made a deal for Ukraine that would have given them almost all of the land, everything, almost all of the land, and no people would have been killed, and no city would have been demolished, and not one dome would have been knocked down. This could have been settled very easily. Just a half-baked negotiator could have settled this years ago. When they're worried about not being seated, you mean somebody that should have gone in and made a deal a long time ago. You could have made a deal. This is one that could have made a deal. There was no talk of this during the Trump administration. Putin would have never, ever done it.
10:15 is the time. So there it is. Donald Trump has blamed Ukraine for being invaded by Russia twice. Donald Trump has claimed that Volodymyr Zelensky is somehow responsible for the continuing carnage that has come about as a consequence of him defending his sovereign territory from the rapacious, imperial, murderous ambition of Vladimir Putin. It's incredible. So what question do we ask this morning? I mean, there's one in the back of my mind that I am frightened to articulate. The other element of domestic politics that pops into my brain at this moment is the mockery of Kanye West. But she has clearly calculated that appealing to this radicalized online right who believe all manner of lies is going to deliver political success for her in the way that it has done for Donald Trump and may yet do for other far-right, I mean avowedly far-right political movements in other European countries. When Americans tell lies about Britain, often racist lies about Britain, it's designed to scare the horses. It's to make people think, gosh, Donald Trump can protect us. We won't end up like this, even if it's not true, the thing that they're frightened of. They do it about their own country, but about foreigners in their own country. They're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs. And I will protect you from these marauding hordes, these foreigners. Look at what's happened in Europe. What I don't understand is how anybody who is living in Europe can join in. It is arguably the least patriotic act imaginable when a foreign politician tells lies about your country to agree. So when Kami Badenoch talks about Western values being imperiled, disappearing under threat. Maybe she's a member of the radicalized online right. Maybe she believes all this stuff. Spends so long on social media that she can't even find the time to stick her head out of the window and just have a little look around. But that is where we are now. And the question I don't want to ask you is whether or not it's already too late. Whether or not Vladimir Putin has actually won. And Ukraine is just the final piece of the evidence jigsaw. Because for the President of the United States, expressing disappointment that the Ukrainian leader was unhappy about being left out of talks between the US and Russia over the ending of the war in his own country, when he talks about Ukraine's ability to have made a deal in order to have somehow averted war in the very beginning, when he essentially repeats Kremlin lies about the necessity and inevitability of invading, you kind of think that it's, for one part of this board, if it were a game of Risk, that's over now. The Kremlin and the White House are aligned. And yet Ukraine was a moment of, I'm going to say, political beauty in this country. I know that there are caveats, but forget the caveats just for a minute. The effort that the people of this country, the citizenry of this country, put into helping refugees, even when the government didn't really step up to the plate very effectively, ordinary people did. Like the kinder transport, the government, history doesn't often relate this, but the government was pretty delinquent when it came to helping Jewish children out of Nazi-occupied Europe. But real people, families, stepped up to the plate, made financial pledges and housed and homed people. And the Ukrainian refugee exodus was, I think, possibly the biggest we've ever undertaken in this country. People listening to this program from Ukraine, still living here. People listening to this program still got refugees living in their house from Ukraine. Everyone agreed. It was a moment of political unity at a time when we thought such a thing had become impossible in the aftermath of Brexit, in the midst of ludicrous, confected culture wars, in the dog days of footballification. Ukraine was the thing we all agreed on. Putin is a menace. Ukraine deserves support. And now the President of the United States, historically our greatest ally, is saying the polar opposite. It's all Zelensky's fault, and he's got no right to be at the peace talks. Is it? You never stop fighting. You can't stop fighting. You can't look into the eyes of people like Marina Litvinenko or Vladimir Kara-Murza or Yulia Navalny, as I have done in the last 6 months, all three of them. You can't look into the eyes of those people and say, we need to stop now. We need to give up. This is, I think, a victory for the Kremlin on a scale that we can't even begin to properly process.
Yep.
So what hell do I ask you at 20 past 10 on a Wednesday morning? I genuinely don't know. I know I say that a lot of mornings. My normalcy bias is preventing me from asking you whether or not it's too late. So if I ask you whether it's too late, it opens the door to the possibility that you tell me that it is, and I don't want to do that because of my normalcy bias. But I said at 10 o'clock, today's a day for ignoring the normalcy bias. You have to drown that voice out. Champagne corks are popping in the Kremlin, said my good friend Bill Browder, who knows more.
We're going to be playing in Factorio. This is I keep saying this is my number one fear, but there's like so many number one fears. What's going to happen when, because right now the way that this is kind of being sold to us by like outer perimeter conservatives is that, well, we're gearing up for conflict with China, okay? Russia's not our main enemy. China's our enemy. This is the China, the Trump's talking about forever. What's going to happen when China rolls up on Taiwan and now we get excuses for why we're not supposed to do anything there? Then what was the point of anything? What are we actually doing? Yeah, I don't know. Do you think someone like Asmongold, with all of his libertarian-esque ideals, gives any kind of shit about Trump saying he's the only law definer? Or is he going to grift to the end? Asmongold is not a libertarian. Very few people say they're libertarians are libertarians. Usually when they say libertarian, that's just like code speak for, I hate the government, basically. You play a Dyson Sphere program? Yeah, I built a Dyson Sphere, okay? Yikes. Do you think something fucked up with this, or is this...
It's not great. To put a nicer spin on it, Trump tends to talk that way to his friends.
Yeah.
And tends to talk nicer to his enemies. So if he's talking to you that way, it still means you're his friend. And I would always, of course, warn people like Zelensky, just don't get into it with Donald Trump. Don't get into it. What's the point? What's the point? We've been backing you this whole time. We will continue to back you. But there must be a paradigm shift, and that's what President Trump brings to the table here is a paradigm shift. That's what they're attempting to do. It's not great, to put a nicer spin on it. Trump, I might.
Does that mean I'm Trump's friend? Liz Cheney is Trump's friend too? How do I unfriend him then? I keep trying. From Adam Kinzinger. Good one. Finally, Cenk with a light to guide us. Yesterday, New York Times had a story about Democratic donors fleeing the party. That explains why the Democratic leaders look like deer in the headlights. Since the donors are gone, there's no one left to give them orders. So they're like robots frozen in place, awaiting commands. True. Get after that donor class, Cenk. You got them. Chase all those damn donors away. Get them out of here. Send all the money to the Republican Party. Yes, all of it.
Lights are
Hours after 2 people died in a plane crash in Arizona.
off, and I was a little concerned because the lights are off, and everything's off, and even the lights in where he was were down, very dim, very, very dim, with all of the lights on the fancy dashboards of the plane, of Air Force One. We're getting a new Air Force One if they can ever finish the damn thing. We're getting 2 of them, actually. But we may have to go a different route because it's taken them a long time. We're going to get military that's going to start building. We're going to get people to start building properly again in our country because they don't build properly. This was Boeing. But we're up there, and I'm looking at these people. And again, I say they look like Tom Cruise, but better. Stronger, tougher. And I like Tom Cruise, but these are better. And they said, are we okay, Captain? Yes, sir, we're fine. But I'm looking at it, I don't see any lights, and we're landing. And I'm used to that. I like to sit with the pilots a lot and respect the pilots greatly. And we're up there, and we have the computer. I call it the computer voice, where it goes 1,900, 800. That's feet. Your feet above ground. So that means you're very low. And I'm looking out, and my eyes are pretty good, and I don't see any lights. And the computer goes out. Sounds like an intelligent individual. It goes 1,000. We're 1,000 feet up. It's a 10-story building. There's a big plane. And then it goes 900, 800, 700. I say, Captain, Captain, we don't see any lights. Is everything? Yes, sir. Everything.
Do you say 1,000 feet tall is a 10-story building?
Everything's fine, sir. We'll be landing in 3 minutes. And then it goes like 600, 500. Captain, are we okay? And then he goes 400, 300, 200. And I'm saying, man, there's nothing out there. And then he goes, boom, perfect landing right on this thing. There are no lights on the runway. There's no, I don't know how the hell they do it, but I'm sure as hell glad we had somebody that knows how to fly. But they didn't want to have any lights.
Are they all going to start clapping?
Because they didn't want the enemy. After spending, years and trillions of dollars, we have to land with Air Force One with no lights on the runway. But they were incredible people. And then I got out of the plane, and I actually asked my people, I said, excuse me, I was very brave sitting in that cockpit. Am I allowed to give myself the Congressional Medal of Honor? And they said, I don't think so, sir. I said, well, I felt I was extremely brave. But now here's the problem with saying a story like that when you kid. The press will say, President Donald Trump.
I don't know. I don't think I have it in me to go over these, but apparently there were 2 Hasanabi profiles. And I have ascended status to in one of these. All associated with the Zionist streamer and infamous internet troll Stephen Destiny Bonnell, who has gotten into hot water for his usage of various slurs. Based. Who's afraid of Hassan Piker? He's hot. He's dangerous. Young men actually listen to him. Is he what Democrats are looking for? Twitch is Hassan Piker, and then there's another one. Twitch is Hassan Piker wants fellow leftists to know, having fun isn't bourgeois decadence. A new book excerpt from Stream Big dives deep on Twitch's top stars. Oh, Nathan Grace on that guy. He brags about how he could have talked to DNC chair candidates. Does he actually? No shot. Wait, what am I looking for? Is it Control-Shift-T? Some signs suggest otherwise. At his house, Piker told me, virtually everyone running for head of the DNC has reached out to me, but I haven't had time to interview them. We were sitting in a studio while Kaya, his enormous Tibetan Mastiff, weaved through our legs. Well, except for Martin O'Malley, I think, he said, or whichever one is the most corporate. What? Jesus Christ. Apparently they had to edit the title because initially they had written in, he's outspokenly liberal. But they got rid of that part, I guess. Poke says Asmongold. Uh-oh. Poke drama.
What are you scared of? What's going on? He's a good streamer. I used to think Asmon was a good streamer. Real talk. I used to think he was a good streamer because when he talks, people listen. I think he was great at it, but I mean, he probably is the same way.
I used to think he was a good streamer because when he talked, people listened. What?
But just in the worst way possible. You know? I think the guy can't really think for himself, and he just goes off Reddit narratives. And the fact he hates on me once the Reddit thing goes off proves to me that guy's a fucking pussy. He couldn't talk before. He couldn't talk to my face. He was nice to me in real life. But the moment that they talk shit about me, he does it. I can say he's a fucking loser. Okay? I don't give a fuck.
Damn.
Fuck him.
Damn.
Fuck him. He's a racist.
Ooh. Got him.
Oh, I picked.
Actually wish that
Point of view, you're talking to a liberal who hates Elon. Oh boy. Armor up, okay? This is going to be painful.
you know, I actually wish that the government would extort us more. My name is Beck. My pronouns are they, them, and Elon is he's a threat to democracy. You know, I'm concerned. It is in the nation's best interest to continue being extorted by the government through taxation, and it is frankly none of our business where they're spending that money. I saw a report that Elon found $4.7 trillion of untraceable spending from the Treasury Department. Who does he think he is? It is none of our business. You don't understand. Government transparency is a threat to democracy. $2.7 trillion in improper Medicare and Medicaid payments? No. Our healthcare system is literally perfect. They said that they found 20 million Americans over the age of 100 receiving Social Security benefits. Assuming that that is fraud is frankly a threat to democracy. USAID is not a money laundering organization, and if you ask questions, you are a threat to democracy. No, listen, I hear you. The Pentagon failed their last 7 audits in a row, but if I mess up on my taxes, I can go to jail. And that's okay. It's not a double standard. It's not. You know, at the end of the day, I hope and I pray that they get Elon out of there. They need to get him out of there and then just get back to extorting us through taxation without transparency. It's democracy. That is how we save it.
Wow. That's just... unbelievable. When you ask MAGA for one thing they dislike about Trump, I remember this guy. This was such a good answer. And I think you guys are obsessed with a cult leader who is taking the entire Republican Party off of a cliff.
Everything he say he do. Trump is gangster. Remember.
Can you give me one thing you don't like about Trump?
What I don't like about him, I love everything about him.
I know,
Trump.
because it's a cult. Thank you.
It's not a cult. I'm from.
Cult.
No, it's not
That's
a cult.
Oh my God. This is Uncivil Law talking about the executive order from last night. What, about how based it is and how it's actually okay?
Long-standing norm that only the president or the attorney general can speak for the United States when stating an opinion as to what the law is.
So as to that second part, right, the idea that only the attorney general is the true authority on what the law is
He's gonna, oh God, don't do it. Hold on. I'm gonna make a huge prediction and I'm gonna be totally wrong because he's gonna say that's incorrect. It's up to the Supreme Court and the courts to decide what the law is. But if he was trying to sweep for Trump as hard as possible, he would say that's actually correct because the DOJ is like the legal body inside of the executive department, and it's actually up to the Department of Justice to make determinations about what the government can do that's within the bounds of the law. So in a way, that's kind of like them deciding what the law is. But he won't possibly say that. He's going to say the first thing.
It's pretty kind of standard, right? There are law offices within all kinds of government, state and federal, but ultimately the attorney general is the chief law enforcement officer, and ultimately the one who ultimately has the ability to say what the law is. That's why.
What an I'm done. I don't care. Don't show me. I don't want to watch it. I don't care. Don't want to watch it, and I don't care. Don't want to watch it, and I don't care. Just don't show me this shit, okay? It's so I can write the script for every single one of these YouTubers, okay? If I retire from streaming, it's going to become a script writer, and I will just write the script for all of these guys, okay? The factory calls. I need to do a phone call. Give me just a minute. Hold on. Should I play my the last Piers Morgan thing that I was on, or should I do the Dr. Mike one finally released today? Fuck it, have this guy. Oh my God, this was so painful. The first like 30 minutes of this are like trans. I'll just start it here, actually. Fuck it. It shouldn't take too long. Hopefully. One sec.
Feminism. So Donald Trump has been lauded as the great new feminist of the United States.
What? He always phrases, oh my God, bro. Oh my God.
This comes from his executive order banning trans athletes in women's sport. Let's take a look at him, surrounded by grateful women and girls as he did this.
You know, if you'd like to gather around me, I think I'm going to be okay. Come on. Come on. Secret Service is worried about them? If we have to worry about them, we have big problems. Okay.
I don't think I've ever seen a finer feminist, Destiny.
I mean, this is like classic Republicans. Like Donald Trump tweets out at 4 a.m. that he's going to make the sun shine, and then at 6 a.m. the sun comes up. Everybody worships him for it. I'm pretty sure, didn't the NCAA already roll back a lot of the trans participation in sports in the United States? And then I feel like we've already seen like the Olympic make moves against it. Like we've already seen like in your country, in the United States, across the world, people are kind of like rolled back a little bit on a lot of the trans youth, especially the medication stuff.
Yeah, but you said the phrase there. When you say it's been a little bit, and it's been piecemeal, sport by sport, and age groups and so on. What Trump has done with one sweep of his pen is say no more of it at all. Right? There will be no more trans athletes in women's sport, period. Now, I personally think this is absolutely the right thing to do. I think it's become the new doping, where people who have an unfair advantage have been, beating women removing women from women's teams in, say, the Olympics and so on, actually beating up women, as we saw in the Paris Olympics, where somebody reportedly banned from the World Championships with male chromosomes literally beat up one female opponent so badly she quit after 40 seconds in the ring. So I do think this is a really important thing. Do you agree with him?
I don't think this is a very important thing. I don't even know if he can enforce this through executive order. Like, I don't know if this is going to be like some kind of Title IX challenge or whatever. I don't know what the courts are doing with this right now. It's just, I just don't think this is very relevant in the overall scheme of U.S. or world politics right now. I mean, if people don't want women competing with trans women, especially at the college level and beyond, I don't really have a problem with that. I never really had a problem with that. I don't know if these two groups of people should be competing with each other. This is like a blip on the grand scale of things, I think.
You know what's interesting, Andrew? I've talked to quite a few on the left since the election. They've moved from the position before the election. I'm not saying Destiny was one of them. I can't remember, and you can clarify if you want, Destiny, but a lot of them are like, absolutely, trans women should be allowed to compete in women's sport, blah, 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 blah. And Biden and Kamala Harris supported this with actual policies endorsing it. And now the position is, you know what, nobody cares. It's a thing. I don't have a view. And I think it's because, to their shock and horror, the single most effective political ad of modern times turned out to be that trans ad that Trump did, ending with Kamala's for they, them, Donald Trump's for you, but also including this issue of women's sports and women's safety and the issue of putting, as we had in England, in Scotland, actually, a male rapist who suddenly identified as a woman got put in a women's prison. It cost the First Minister of Scotland their job. I think it's a big issue, far bigger than Democrats want to admit. And it's interesting, the narrative has changed from we're all in favor to actually it's just a small thing, we don't care about it.
Yeah, this has been a major setback for LGBTQ, period. The trans issue has been the entry gateway for the one of the most brutal attacks against the left in modern times. And all you really have to do is just ask basic logistical questions like, okay, which prisons do they go to? You know what I mean? We were past bathrooms. We were into prisons and can children get gender reassignment surgery, things like this. This has always been a very, very unpopular position for leftists, but they can't really back away from it because the T got attached to the LGB, right? So they could never really back away from it. They've had to kind of defend it tooth and nail. To Destiny's credit, he's always had a more nuanced position on this of I don't care, at least to my knowledge. But ultimately, this is not popular for them. It's never been popular for them. When you're talking about what Trump is doing with the gender binary, I somewhat disagree. Not that the thing I agree with is that he proposed at a government top-down level. The United States only recognizes two genders. Now he means sexes, male and female, right? That's what he's alluding to there. But I do think it actually was very punishing for feminists to have fought all those years for their sports teams and then have men just go in and kick the holy shit out of them, right? So that actually mobilized, Well, but I mean, it mobilized a lot of those feminists to move away from the left because they were like, wait a second, this actually wasn't the liberation we signed up for, right? We spent all this time fighting for this, and now you can just basically put on a wig and go break all of our records. I mean, it's just a huge loser for the left. And
I agree. Destiny, I want to read you a quote from Andrew Wilson he posted this week. The most disappointing thing about feminists is how made out of glass they are. With the slightest pushback, they break. They demand equality until you talk to them like you would a man. It's actually comical. Would you concur with him?
I mean, that's everybody in politics. I mean, everybody's a snowflake depending on what the issue you're talking about is. I don't think that it's ever been a huge issue on most of the left when it comes to trans stuff. I think there's a vocal minority on Twitter and in colleges that scream about it. I think it seems like it's a huge issue because Republicans wanted it to be a huge issue. Even that commercial you were talking about was quoting something that Kamala said in 2019. So it seemed like some huge, ever-present issue. But I don't know. I guess I'm looking more towards like domestic policy, like things related to immigration or healthcare or what's happening right now in our executive branch or foreign policy. Like I thought the war in Ukraine was supposed to end on day one. I didn't know that we were signing up to be owners of Greenland and the Gaza Strip and the Panama Canal. These things I think are more important, at least to me, but I don't know, maybe some people are really powered by what Republicans think.
I don't know, I got a 13-year-old daughter, and I got to say, if I was living in America, she was born there actually, but if I was living in America with a 13-year-old daughter who likes sport, I would be very exercised about this, and particularly if she had to share changing rooms with biological men who said, I'm now a woman.
Yeah, I think I'd be more worried about my daughter like dying in Texas, like trying to get a medical procedure done because I'm pretty sure there have been 3 deaths now so far in Texas of young women that are pregnant that can't have medical procedures done because the doctors have to be so careful when they're doing them that they can't accidentally abort a fetus because then they'll be held liable for crime. So I think these are things I'd be worried about more than trans athletes, which are
more than a woman potentially being killed in a boxing ring by a trans athlete.
How many times has this happened?
Well, it hasn't yet, but it will do if it carries on.
Exactly. But it already has happened with the abortion. So that's what I'm more worried about. Yeah.
Yeah, but children's gender reassignment surgery, that is something which has been on the table for a long time. That's one. And two, when you're talking about this issue, it's kind of revisionist history, right? Now, suddenly the Democrats don't care, right? Oh, we it was always a vocal minority. No, it really wasn't. These were very, very public fights going on at the national level. And the reason is because this was a moral question. We're talking about a moral question from the viewpoint of the Christian right, which most right-wingers are Christians. You're actually assaulting their religion. You're assaulting their idea of what moral grounding even is. So to them, it's a huge deal. For Destiny, who has a completely different moral prism, it's really not a big deal, right? He doesn't really care about it. It's not that important. But to the average person, at least to the average right-wing conservative who's a Christian, it's a huge deal. The assault of the moral foundation is something they're going to take issue with. It's going to be one of their top priorities. So to say that Democrats were not fighting tooth and nail on behalf of trans inclusiveness, including in sports and everything, it's just insane revisionism. Of course,
yeah, they absolutely were. I mean, look at someone like J.K. Rowling, who got absolutely destroyed by the woke brigade for standing up for women's rights to fairness and equality. Now everyone lauds her for her heroic stance, but at the time, most women understandably put their head under the vicious parapet and didn't want to engage, and that left people like her out on their own, getting completely killed by people who profess to be the Be Kind lobby. And talking of which, I wanted to play you this, Destiny, because it really annoyed me. Not because it's a comedian making a joke, that's absolutely fine, nor that I want her banned or cancelled or any of those things. Just about the blatant hypocrisy of what we're about to hear. This is Chelsea Handler talking about Melania Trump.
I am your DEI host, Chelsea Handler. It was a huge year for biopics, a complete unknown about Bob Dylan, Maria Callas, and Honora about Melania Trump.
Now, Destiny, what she's doing there is calling the First Lady a hooker, okay? She's perfectly entitled to say that. But she would never have done that joke, and nor would any comedian have ever done that joke about a Democrat First Lady at an award ceremony, ever. So my question is, are the Democrats, again, is it one rule for them, one rule for everybody else? And before you do the Republicans do other stuff, I know they do. And it just seems to me she would never have done that. And nor would any comedian if it was a Democrat First Lady.
I so don't care. I mean, like, what is a question? Was a joke too mean, or would she not have done it towards a Democrat? She probably wouldn't have done it towards a Democrat because those types of people all tend to lean left. That'd be my guess, right? The same way that if it was any right-leaning comedians, they're probably not going to go super hard on anybody on the right. I mean, that seems pretty obvious. You're asking if it's a mean joke. I mean, yeah, it's a mean joke. Lots of people tell mean jokes. I don't know what kind of...
No, it's not about the mean joke. Well, I think it's not really a joke. It's just calling the First Lady a hooker is just vile.
Okay, the majority of... I hear a ton of conservatives now that say that Michelle Obama and the wife of the French Macron are trans. Like, I'm pretty sure that's Candace Owens. She said, I would stake my entire career on Macron's wife being trans.
That's not a ton of conservatives.
I don't know. Sure, I see a lot of jokes about that Michelle Obama stuff being trans, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, the Michelle Obama dick jokes are very old and have been going on for a long time, right? I've seen those, you've seen those, and some of them are kind of funny. But the point is that with Chelsea Handler here, they're one of the most promiscuous women in Hollywood, calling someone else a hooker is,
right.
by the way, hilarious. And also, you're talking about an entire party who is pro-sex work, pro-sex worker, pro-prostitution, pro-OnlyFans, does everything it can possibly do in order to enable those things. And then at the same time, they're like, oh, I can't believe the First Lady's a hooker. It's like, if it was anybody else who wasn't a Republican, they would probably glorify it. They'd be like, finally, our first prostitute First Lady. Like, I don't even understand why, the depths of the hypocrisy here is actually kind of outrageous, right?
Yeah, I completely agree.
Well, I think the joke has more to do with pointing out, I think, the hypocrisy on the other side. For instance, if you make a joke about, like, I don't know if we're allowed, like for Steven Crowder being gay, that's a common joke that people on the left make. I don't think the joke is, haha, you're gay, so that's bad. I think the joke is more, you hate this thing and you are this thing, which my guess is going to be, I didn't see her whole performance. I don't even know the movie reference she was making, but that's probably the joke is that you guys hate prostitutes and you are a prostitute. You hate gay people, you are gay.
No, that wasn't the joke. That wasn't the joke. She's just basically calling Melania Trump a hooker because she wants to imply she's actually a hooker. And I think that the point I'm making is not that she's not entitled to do what I think was a crap joke. Of course she is. She's a comedian. It's the fact that you would never, ever see at an award ceremony in America, I can ever remember, any comedian, right or left, make that kind of remark about a Democrat First Lady, a current First Lady, from a stage televised at an award show. That's the distinction.
I mean, I haven't seen every award show, but like, didn't Stephen Fry do a couple of really brutal award shows where he was like throwing it out to almost everybody? Am I making this up, dude?
Well, he's English.
Okay. All right.
Let's move on.
I guess you guys get away with that. Yeah,
no, I don't think that. I just don't think any of them have ever called a first lady a hooker. It just seemed to me, I don't know. It's or X now. If you want to do things, okay, fine. I'm not going to say you should be cancelled.
Well, I thought we learned when that guy made the island of floating trash Puerto Rico joke. I thought we learned there were no lines anymore. Why are we crying about her making this joke now?
Well, no, because the left went completely nuts. They thought he did cross a line.
Well, now we've learned.
They did go crazy about it.
Now you can just joke about anything, I guess, right? Since we're all in that.
Well,
world
you
now.
should be able to joke about everything.
Yeah, sure. I mean, but we can also joke about her being, one of the most promiscuous women in Hollywood, and that she's speaking out of both sides of her mouth here because she's been a big time supporter of sex workers, and now suddenly,
I think that's a really good point.
She's a hooker. It's like, what are you talking about?
That's a very good point that she used it as a slur, having professed to be the complete opposite about sex workers. Very good point. Talking of stinking hypocrites and vile people, let's come to Kanye West, who started the week parading his wife, Bianca Censori, naked on the Grammys red carpet. We're looking at these images now. It was a deliberate derobing, whatever. I mean, obviously any woman can do that. I thought it was all a bit cheap and embarrassing and pathetic, and I certainly wouldn't want to be doing that with my wife on a red carpet. What was far more serious to me was what then followed, which was literally just a bombardment of horrifically anti-Semitic, racist comments, and then some pornography that he began flying out. One of his posts, sometimes you have to do it like the pharaohs, make your Jews work for you, but watch them as close as you can, whip your Jews. What was interesting to me, Destiny, was ultimately Elon Musk, I messaged him directly on X publicly and said, just keep letting this guy do it. He's breaking every single rule that X has about this kind of stuff. So the normal rules weren't applying to him, and he was doing it to 32 million people. So the free speech argument is one thing. Actually, the X in-house rule book is another that wasn't being applied. So it seemed to be one rule for him, one rule for everybody else. But secondly, it was clearly, in my opinion, when you start talking about making Jews your slaves and whip them, you are actually now committing a crime. You're inciting actual violence against a group of people. That is a crime. It's not protected by the First Amendment. But what was interesting was Elon Musk only intervened and shut down the account for the NSFW pornography, which was completely legal. So, inciting people to violence against Jewish people was not considered to cross a line, but actually posting legal pornography was. I thought that was an interesting contradiction. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like Kanye West to me, it seems pretty sad because I feel like it's pretty obvious he has mental issues relating to, is he bipolar or whatever? So I don't know if he has these manic phases where he just starts going crazy. And I don't know if he either surrounds himself with yes men and fires everybody else, or if there's just a bunch of people like the Candaces in the world who are just around him to take advantage of him. But I mean, clearly he has these mentally unhinged moments. I'm sure him being as famous and as wealthy and as successful as he is probably doesn't help with that mania. As for rule enforcement on X, I mean, there's a million things that could be said about that. People have had a lot of complaints about Elon coming on. Obviously, a lot of people from the left feel like the platform has gotten a lot more hateful. A lot of people have said that the platform's gotten a lot more spammy. There's a lot more bot activity and everything. Some people on the right over the H-1B fiasco were upset that Elon seemed to be banning people who previously would have been okay because of their political / racial stances, I guess, or whatever. So yeah, it seems like Elon's been having a little bit of trouble getting a handle on how he exactly wants to present X's moderation to the world. Yeah, I mean, Andrew, I interviewed Kanye West a year and a half ago, and he denied having any mental illness, certainly denied having any treatment for any mental illness. And a lot of Jewish people in particular think it's just an excuse, that he just actually is a massive attention seeker. It was the Grammys. He's no longer a kind of, superstar rapper in people's eyes. He's just become this pretty unpleasant troll. And that he was doing all this to suck attention away from the Super Bowl, from the Grammys and so on. What do you think? Where's the truth about Kanye West, do you think?
I mean, he's done this before. I mean, he had a meme presidential campaign, right?
Yeah.
A total meme, ultimately. Some people took it seriously. Most people in the mainstream most certainly did not take it seriously. And yes, it's attention-seeking behavior. Stripping, first of all, this is not the first time this has happened. Remember that his wife also was in controversy because she had a cross on her buttocks, her naked buttocks, and then now she is at the Grammys, and what happens? He literally takes her clothes off, disrobes her, humiliating, by the way, absolutely humiliating. I felt ashamed on her behalf. I hate saying that, right? But I just couldn't believe it, right? The disrespect towards your wife, that's to me in many ways unconscionable. When it comes to the X thing, though, the freedom of speech, what we're talking about here is this line in freedom of speech, which you're right, Elon Musk has not figured this out yet because it's not really possible to figure out. Is it okay, and this is what Kanye West is trying to say, is it okay to post as much swastikas and I heart Hitlers and everything else on this as I want? And if it's not, why isn't it?
Yeah.
Why can't I?
I agree.
I thought this was about freedom of speech.
He's
pushing the number, and that drives attention to that account. And in many ways, it could have been a tactical move by Musk to say, well, maybe taking that down is not going to look good on me. And so when the time came when porn came up, he pushed it a little further, right? Okay, they're not banning my account. He's actually letting this go. How do we push the number a little bit further? Then he moves over to, okay, let's post hardcore porn. And then finally Elon Musk says, okay, enough. I tried to do the best I can. So Musk is trying to find this line. Kanye is purposely pushing the line so that he can test the limits of Musk and this free speech on X and try to point out hypocrisy, this kind of thing. But yes, I agree. It's for attention in a big way. I don't think anybody would disagree with that, even his supporters.
Yeah. Let's turn to the Trump-Elon Oval Office presser. We've got a sort of this.
Some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000. I mean, we will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes. I'm not sure we should be sending $50 million worth of condoms to anywhere, frankly. I'm not sure that's something Americans would be really excited about. And that is really an enormous number of condoms, if you think about it.
Destiny, what did you make of that? Obviously, it's very unusual. You've got the richest man in America standing next to the President of the United States in the Oval Office by the Resolute desk. He's got his kid with him who's picking his nose. It's all a bit random and weird and surreal. However, I did watch it all, and I kept thinking to myself, if I was an average American watching this, hearing what Elon Musk is doing to federal overspending, I'd be cheering him on. I'd be all in favor of this.
Yeah, unfortunately, the average American, I guess, or the average person has no idea how government works or functions. And I guess weird and surreal is just the way to describe now, or illegal, I guess, is the way to describe that this administration has decided to address programs that they don't like. If you want to cut down on waste, fraud, and abuse, I don't think anybody would necessarily have a problem with it, but they keep saying waste, fraud, and abuse when what they mean is programs that I don't like. And they've already taken several almost certainly illegal actions in trying to basically unilaterally dismantle organizations like USAID that have been independently authorized by Congress that the president doesn't have the ability to do, to dismantle unilaterally. And now you've seen TROs coming out from the judiciary that's telling him, hey, you have to stop. There was the one on the federal spending freeze that not only was a TRO issued telling him that you have to stop freezing these funds. Now another judge has said you are violating the TRO. You need to stop this immediately. So I guess if you don't care about the legality or the process and procedure or anything having to do with the structure of government, I guess it's a cool thing. But if you care about like following the law or the rules or maintaining your government, then it would probably be a horrific thing. But
Andrew?
Yeah, you got this idea. I've heard Destiny kind of talk about this before when he's saying, okay, these are illegal actions and possibly the court's not going to be able to catch up with these illegal actions. And so Trump is just going to basically continue with what he's considering to be illegal actions. Thing is like people forget about things like jury nullification or like the idea that you can have laws. And even if you're the enforcer of the laws, in this case, the executive branch, you don't actually have to enforce these things. There's you're put there for a reason, just like a jury can nullify a law by saying, even though the law says you're guilty, I can still come back with a not guilty verdict. What's happening here is we don't even know what the waste, fraud, and abuse is. And so there's an audit going on, and this is exactly what Musk is doing. They're trying to audit this and get it in front of the attention of the American people to say, look, we don't want condoms for the Taliban. That was 15 million. Promotion of atheism in Nepal for 500,000. French LGBTQ programs in West and Central Africa for $1 million, right? I mean, the list goes on and on and on. $200 million 20 days in. I think that the American people do deserve to know that. And I don't think that they would, that this would be front and center or a thing we would be focusing on absent this audit. And I think that more of these government agencies should be audited. Now, Destiny can he can say, well, technically, due to the rule of law, we have judges who are making these impositions and this and that. It's like, yeah, that's fine, but that's all part of the process too. It's all part of the process of law. The process of law is playing out exactly like it should. Judges are supposed to create injunctions if something illegal is going on, et cetera, et cetera. There's nothing wrong, though, with auditing these places. And for the spirit of transparency, I think that leftists are just pissed for no good reason. Like they go, oh, Musk is collecting all these people's information. It's like unelected officials at the DMV are collecting my information. The unelected officials at the Social Security office are collecting my information. Like so many government offices collect my information by people who I definitely didn't elect, and neither did Destiny. They're totally fine with that. But for some reason with these guys, no, that's too much.
That's a good point.
I mean, the reason the reason why is because these things have been authorized by law. There's a process and procedure there. The Social Security Administration was created by Congress. There's a process and procedure by which they collect data, and they have a process and procedure by which they store data and who's allowed to access it. Elon Musk is definitionally an unelected bureaucrat who is now part of a shadow government who is going from agency to agency, cutting whatever he decides is necessary. In terms of there being transparency, all of this stuff was already publicly available. They've literally shuttered the USAID offices. What do you mean? They've literally shuttered them payments from the Treasury.
Yeah,
shuttered them as in they tried to get a mass recall saying all the employees needed to come home, which was stopped by a TRO by a judge. And now a lot of these programs, there was just recently a report by the head of the Treasury guy who now is fired, who was saying that there's a whole bunch of food and stuff that we ship to other countries. It's just going to spoil because now we've cut off funding and money for it. All of these things have just been unilaterally cut by Elon Musk and Trump without any authorization from Congress, despite the fact that Congress was the one that authorized the funds for these programs and authorized these offices and agencies. If you want to remove all of these things, that's fine. If you don't want $500,000 being spent for trans ballets in Nepal for atheists or whatever, that's fine. If you don't want it, then Congress has to defund it. That's the way that this process works. It's not up to the president unilaterally to decide what he likes or doesn't like. That's already been passed
hang on.
by the Congress.
Well, hang on.
It's not up to you.
That's actually, I was going to say, look, that's not actually correct. He's entitled to do this, and then there can be
absolutely not.
Well, hang on. Then there can be legal challenges, and Trump made it clear in the Oval Office yesterday he would accept what a judge said. Now, by contrast, I remember Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, when it came to the Texas ruling in a court by a judge about abortion medication, for example, she said that the Democrats should not accept what that judge had ruled. Right. So why is it one rule? Why is it one rule for Democrats that they can ignore a judge's order with impunity? But when President Trump says, if you want to challenge this, no problem, I would accept the ruling of the judge. Isn't that democracy?
What years was AOC the president of the United States?
What difference does that make?
What does that have to do with anything?
Because she's not in the position to do these things. She can give the advice on it. If you want me to ask myself, like,
she's an elected lawmaker who doesn't want to obey the law.
A lawmaker. She's in a different branch of government. She's part of the legislature. We're not talking about the legislature. We're not talking about a random lawmaker right now. We're talking about the president of the United States doing things to intentionally contravene. You can't just say you could break the law.
President Biden did the same over student loans.
No, he absolutely didn't. When the Supreme Court shut him down in one thing, then he took a different avenue. It was not the same. President Biden did not ignore temporary restraining orders. It wasn't issuing TROs to stop what he was doing with the loan forgiveness. It's a totally different thing.
Yeah,
to say that this is not the same. It's not the same process.
Hang on, Destiny. I just let you
Vance
go.
and other people have said over and over. I'm still responding to Pierce. Vance and others have made it clear over and over again. They've quoted the Andrew Jackson quote, and they've said, well, we should just resist the judiciary. It is not part of law and order. It's not part of checks and balances for the executive to say, well, I don't care what a judge says. We'll just do whatever, which is what they're currently doing. And a judge has already said they've done with the TRO that was placed on them, having to do with freezing federal funding. So they've already broken with what the judges are telling them to some extent. And at the end of the day, there's no way to check and balance the executive if they're just going to do what they want to do. You have no checks and balances there. What are men in robes and lawmakers going to walk down and fight with the U.S. Marshals and the FBI? Like, it's not going to happen.
Andrew?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So there's an issue. What you have is an issue of authority. So Trump he's trying to expand the limits of his office as fast as possible, and I understand why. Last time he was there, they were trying to impeach him from basically day one, made up this phony Russian collusion nonsense. He comes in now, he has nothing to lose. He's going to expand his office as quickly as possible, try to move things as quickly as he possibly can, and most importantly, he doesn't trust the judicial branch. That's what he said himself in his various speeches. I don't trust them to give fair rulings. I don't trust that they're actually there in respect to actual law. He doesn't actually even believe that. So what he's doing is he's expanding as quickly. Hang on, my turn. So he's expanding it as quickly as he possibly can. But he did say that he would abide by the rulings of these judges. He just recently said this, and we don't know what's gonna come of that. Right now, he's expanding this office to try to figure out these audits, this type of thing. I don't see what he's actually done wrong. You're already panicking, but we haven't really had a chance to see what happens if he abides by these rulings, doesn't abide by these rulings.
Right.
We don't really know that yet.
Right.
Well, DOGE in and of itself is probably a wholly illegal agency. I don't think that DOGE even exists. I don't think they have the legal capacity to even do what Trump wants them to do. Number one. Number two, bringing up the Russia collusion stuff is funny when the entire foundation for Hunter Biden and Burisma was entirely fabricated. That person's already been convicted by the FBI for lying about the origination for that. And three, Donald Trump was already found to have people who were working with him collude with Russia. Roger Stone did it, but he was pardoned by Donald Trump. The same way Donald Trump pardoned all 1,600 J6 offenders.
The same way that Biden Biden does the whole crime family, right? Pardons the whole crime family. That's fine.
Oh, yeah. How many crimes have they committed? Republicans had like 8 years to investigate and found nothing. How do you know you had 8 years to investigate it? What do you mean? How many special counsels? How did we have 8 years to investigate it? Nothing. How did we have 8 years to investigate him from as soon as Biden was in office? They've been investigating this guy, Hunter Biden, over and over and over and over again, and they found nothing. That's why the charges at the end of the day were for tax fraud. Well, for Joe Biden, they found nothing ever. They've been investigating.
This isn't going to make the point any better. I just want to make sure that we can get back to the actual point.
Destiny, if none of them have committed crimes, why do they all need preemptive pardons?
Yeah, they all need pardons.
Because Trump has shown over and over again that he doesn't need crimes to start chasing down people, and the Republicans have no problem hunting people down to try to go on fishing.
And the Democrats haven't been doing that for the last year.
Give me one example.
Stormy bloody Daniels. Honestly.
Did he break a law? Did he break a law?
What
also, that wasn't the federal government. That was the state.
Are you honestly happy?
That's fine.
The only time an American... Hang on. The only time an American president...
No, I don't care.
The only time an American president was ever dragged through a criminal court was over a one-night stand with a porn star 20 years ago. Utterly preposterous.
It wasn't over a one-night stand. It was over misappropriating campaign funds and then creating a paper trail. If you don't like the law, that's fine.
You've had presidents like Obama waging illegal drone programs, killing thousands of innocent people. Why is he not in a criminal court?
Illegal as per who? Illegal as per who? Which crimes? What are we talking about?
You don't think illegal drone programs are criminal?
Because it sounds... Illegal as per who?
Oh, you think they're
You just say illegal because it sounds bad. Apparently so.
What about the illegal invasion of Iraq by George Bush?
What are we talking about for illegal invasion?
This drives me crazy. But this is the problem, right? Illegal. Like, and again, to some extent, progressives or Dems in general have themselves to blame. The illegal drone strikes, the illegal wars, the illegal. Well, if everything's illegal, then what Trump is doing must not be that exceptional, because I guess it's all illegal. But it's not. Illegal means something generally. It's against the law, right?
Invasion. Illegal.
I'm talking about crimes.
Which crime? What crime
A
are you talking
bigger
about?
crime
For
than
New York
sleeping
State,
with a
it was
porn
a crime
star.
misappropriated campaign, but
I'm making the point. The only time an American president has ever been dragged through a criminal court was not over running illegal drone programs or illegally invading sovereign countries. It was over an alleged one-night stand with a porn star that involved a bit of paper shuffling. It was completely ridiculous.
You have strong feelings about what you think should be a crime or not, but if you don't care about the law, there's no legal argument to be had then. If you just think it's a crime because it's bad, you don't like it, or you think it's a crime or it's not a crime because you don't think it's a big deal, that's fine. But I mean, like, if you want to have the legal argument,
logic for you. As
if you want
long
to
as
talk about
bad things are done via the process of law, that's fine. But if you do good things
saying it
absent
was
the process
fine.
of law, that's bad. It's like, what are you talking about, man?
Yeah, I know. Here's my chain of logic. I know it's hard to follow. If you are a criminal, it's because you've broken a law. Not all bad things are criminal, okay? Not all bad things are crimes. You can think somebody did a bad thing, but they didn't commit a crime. Donald Trump committed crimes in New York State, probably committed crimes insofar as Georgia is concerned, and he's committed federal crimes insofar as the Mar-a-Lago documents case was and the J6 case was. He won't be held accountable for all of that, thankfully, because he's dismissed it. He does everything he can to elude accountability, but those are crimes. If you want to say, I don't like the war in Iraq and that's illegal as per who? We can talk about the ICJ or the ICC if you want, but that gets obviously way more complicated.
No, that wasn't what my point was. My point was
crimes.
Yeah, it wasn't my point. My point was to say that from your view, you're only concerned about process of law in this case.
Yes,
right?
the law, yes.
Not
correct,
about
yes.
hang on. Not about the moral implications of the actual waste, fraud, and abuse that is brought up. Only that the technical process is followed. So it's like, okay, but what if they're not following your technical process, but they're actually finding waste, fraud, and abuse from a moral implication? That's actually a good thing. Now, I don't even agree with you that they're breaking any laws. I don't even agree that they're breaking any laws. These challenges are brand new. We have no idea how this is going to play out. You don't. I don't. But we have no idea if he's going to adhere to what the court is going to say. No, we don't have a good idea. You have no idea what you're talking about. It's not. We don't know for sure that Trump is going to just go, oh, I'm just going to Jackson the courts. The courts can enforce their own law. Like, that is speculation that's beyond the pale.
They've already done that. A judge has already issued a ruling saying they've already violated a TRO. So that's already happened to some extent. Now, how far will it go? Who knows? They've already done exactly that. DOGE does not have the legal authority to go in and unilaterally.
No, they're giving a legal challenge back, Destiny.
They didn't even a legal challenge back. Read the TROs. Their response was, "Oh, we're going after fraud," and the judge laughed. And he said, "This isn't even."
That doesn't. Wait. So yes, they are. Not only are they going to respond to this, but they're setting up for legal challenges to go back the other direction.
I like how it's like, this is, I don't know if he did this already when I was gone or if he is about to do this. They'll say, this is the system working as intended. Oh, so you're just supposed to break as many laws as possible and then see when the courts check you? That's the working as intended? I thought we were supposed to, like, try our best to adhere to the boundaries of the law in general, but okay.
This is obvious. And by the way, this is part of the process. Like, I don't know why you just pretend like these politicians don't expand their offices all the time, and that's what the judicial does, right? It comes in, it'll rein it in, it'll say this is constitutional, it's not constitutional, you can't do this, you can't do this. They do it all the time. There's so much precedent for this, in fact. So if he doesn't adhere to what the judges end up saying, to what these courts actually say, when he has no more legal standing to fight it, then you have a leg to stand on. Right now, you don't.
He's already done that.
He's acting, acting the best he can in the ability of the office of the President of the United States.
I think you'd have more credibility if you criticized the problems on the left. So one, I already have. And two, why the fuck would I need to do that? The right criticizes nothing from the right. So you guys clearly don't give a fuck about that. So why would I? What? That doesn't matter.
We will see.
So the goal should be to just break as many laws as possible then and then see what happens.
No,
That's
Trump's made it clear he'll accept the ruling of the judges. If he doesn't, that's another matter. Look, I want to end
that doesn't even follow anyway. Like,
guys, I want to leave.
Follow logically.
We're running out of time. I don't want to leave us without getting to the really contentious story of the week, which is paper straws. Let's watch a clip of Donald Trump talking about straws.
So going back to plastic straws, these things don't work. I've had them many times, and on occasion they break, they explode. If something's hot, they don't last very long, like a matter of minutes, sometimes a matter of seconds. It's a ridiculous situation. So we're going back to plastic straws. I think it's okay. And I don't think that plastic's going to affect a shark very much as they're munching their way through the ocean. Okay.
Destiny, can we at least agree that paper straws suck? Or rather, you can't suck with a paper straw?
You know what? I'm going to be like a good conservative, and just to spite conservatives, I'm going to buy 1,000 paper straws. I'm going to replace every plastic straw that I see in a straw from now on with the worst, the shittiest paper straws that dissolve the second you put them in your fucking soft drink. That's my goal for the next 2 years. That's my way of protesting.
Andrew, your response to that dramatic statement from Destiny about paper straws?
Well, then I have to at least counter with buying 1,000 plastic straws, right? But anyway, I drank out of these stupid paper straws last time I was in Santa Barbara going to the whatever podcast, and they do suck.